Hello, hello. Welcome to CashFlow Hacks. I'm your host, Chris, and with me today is Miss Jean Hoelscher from Jacksonville, Florida. How you doing?
Chris. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on today.
We're so happy to have you. I want to tell the audience a little bit about you. You, as far as self-directed retirement accounts go, you have helped your whole entire family set up retirement accounts. And I'm not talking about just you, your kids, and your husband, but your whole entire family.
Yeah, and it didn't really start out that way, but my dad has a big mouth, and he just loved what I did with his account, and he was bragging about me. And next thing you know, I just sort of put my arms around my whole family and said, "Okay, well, let me show you how it's done." And they've all been so excited and happy with it. And it's in the beginning, it was a little chaotic getting everybody started, but now they're starting to understand the terms and starting to do some investments with their retirement accounts, and just seeing how much more profitable they can be and more in control of their money than when they were just in the stock market. So that part's been great.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you mentioned your father. I have met your father, and I just love listening to him talk about how his world has changed. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, my dad always has done such a great job when he was working, saving for retirement. And he just kept stocking money away in his 401k, and whatever his employer said, hey, you can put money in here, he did it. He just said yes. He's like, he didn't really think too much about it. My dad is so cute. I just adore him. But when he retired, he was very diversified. And when I say diversified, had all these stocks in different brokerages. So instead of just being diversified in different stocks, each stock had a different brokerage. And I'm like, oh my goodness, Dad. But we ended up setting him up on a self-directed account. And then we did something really cool because he had a lot of funds in traditional. We did a conversion, but we did an evaluation on his fund first. And because it was in an LLC, in this self-directed account, he was able to get a huge discount. So that's something, if any of your listeners have a lot of money in traditional, definitely encourage them to check that out. Obviously, you're a great resource because you're the one that told me about it, and I helped my dad and myself with that. And I'm also helping another family member going through their conversion because, the whole traditional thing is not such a great deal for the end consumer.
Right. He was going the traditional route. And you know what? That's the thing. Most Americans that are doing retirement accounts or are putting money away in their retirement accounts are all traditional. 401ks, traditional IRAs, all of the stuff that we've been taught to do, that we think we're doing the right thing, right?
Yes. And it's kind of the whole traditional thing. And it's, when you're raising kids and you're trying to make every dollar stretch, it sounds good to say, oh, well, we can put it in traditional, and then maybe we get a couple extra $100 back this year in our tax refund, and that could really help, right? Except if I put $1,000 in my traditional to 20 years ago, and I don't have to pay tax on it until later, I end up paying tax on everything that $1,000 earned. So if that $1,000 becomes $10,000, now I got to pay taxes on $10,000. Where the Roth was really just such a huge breakthrough with retirement accounts, because it let you put the money in there. You don't get any tax benefit the day you put it in or the year you put it in, but whatever that money grows, all of that is tax free. And there is a way for people that when they put a lot of money in traditional and now they're retiring or they're retiring soon and they're like, gosh, now I have to have required minimum distributions on this money. I have to pay taxes on it. And that was one of my dad's big complaints, was that he had to take an RMD, whether he needed it or not. And he just, I just want to leave the money in there. I don't need it right now. So but what's really cool with the Roth, you don't have to have that required minimum distribution. So that was another way for us to, one, we did the conversion, we paid off the IRS. I just sort of said, you know what, you're kind of paying off that business part you never wanted. And then, once it's in Roth, you don't have to do those RMDs, and you're done with the taxes. You can keep earning money there, and it just keeps growing.
You know what? That's exactly right. I used to use the illustration of, would you rather pay the taxes on the seeds or all of the growth. It's like, whenever, I mean, if you're a farmer and I mean, it doesn't cost you hardly anything for the seeds, but the actual crops, there's a lot of money on the crops. I think I'm saying that kind of backwards. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
no, I thought you said it perfectly.
Okay. The growth, you're going to pay more on the growth than you will on the seeds. So, and plus when you have your money in traditional, you have to use the stock market. You have to invest in the stock market, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, CDs, wherever they want us to put our money.
Yeah. And I kind of look at it like, as far as the traditional investments, the stocks, bonds, annuities, CDs, mutual funds, that's all stuff that's available on Wall Street, but it's only available on Wall Street. You can't leave Wall Street. You've got to just keep your money in there, but you're not really diversified. Really, you just have 5 kinds of fish, but in the end, all you have is fish. So I like steak. I want to be even more diversified. So
right. That's one thing I love about you. When the first time we spoke, it's like you're open to other ways of creating cash flow and creating more income for your family. How would somebody find out about self-directed IRAs?
It's kind of it's interesting because the way I found out about it, I was chaperoning a cross-country meet for my son and just talking to another chaperone. And he's like, I'm a real estate broker. And it's like, gosh, I really want to get into real estate, but gosh, you're probably using your IRA. And I looked at him going, huh? And so I started researching it, and I just got really lucky because the company that I had set up my self-directed account turns out to be one of the best ones out there. And I know you're with them as well. And that's actually how I found you, Chris, is I was they have a website that's very educational. I just popped on there and I listened to your podcast, and that's when I was like, gosh, I need to get to know this girl. But traditionally, as far as trying to find out how these even exist, a lot of it is word of mouth, because you think about the companies that gain the most for you not being in control of your finances, they're all on Wall Street and they don't want you to know about it. And even if you do go to like one of the other big brokerage houses and they say, oh, we have self-directed IRAs, we can set you up with a self-directed IRA. Well, if all they sell is stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, that's all they're going to let you do with your self-directed IRA. So you got to be careful who you actually use to set this account up for you.
That's so true. And as far as like self-directed IRAs, we've talked about this, but how long have there actually been self-directed IRAs around?
It's actually been over 30 years since the IRS allowed these, but nobody knows about them. So I ended up talking about them a lot. And sometimes my husband sort of rolls his eyes and talks to another group. He's like, oh, but I get so excited about this stuff because people don't realize they can have a lot more control of the money that they worked hard for and saved to actually do things like buy real estate. You can do fix and flips. You can buy tax liens, private contracts. There's really more. There's a very short list of things you can't do with a self-directed account. But if it's something that you really know, if you're in the medical field and you see this new medical product that you want to invest in, you can do that. There are some restrictions, but it's been a great vehicle for my family and getting them to kind of see just how to invest differently. And the private alternative investments that we have with you have really been a game changer for everyone that I love. So we love you.
Well, and I love you guys. And one thing I really love about you is that whenever you learn something, it's not like it goes in one ear and out the other. You are able to turn around and teach other people about it. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted you to come on the show today, because it's not just coming from me. It's actually coming from somebody that I've worked with and somebody that has done a lot of research. But you know what? The other thing is, when the company that we work with, Checkbook IRA, they actually, they're a great company. I actually found them and worked out a deal with them so that I could offer my clients these self-directed IRAs. But one of the things that Peter always says, Peter's the one that I was on the podcast with, and he's the owner of Checkbook IRA. He's the one that told me that these are not just self-directed IRAs, these are actually self-managed IRAs. And I know you know a little bit about that. Can you talk about that?
So yeah, but they actually, the way they set theirs up is that your IRA owns an LLC 100%. This isn't an LLC that you're also going to use to, sell some sort of direct sales type thing or have a business with. Your IRA owns this LLC 100%, and you become the manager of the LLC. And but when it's all set up, you end up with a checkbook and a debit card. So if you own a property using your self-directed IRA, and let's say you need to buy light bulbs or whatever, you can buy the light bulbs with this and not have to wait for permission. And that's where a lot of people lost out on deals if they were with a custodian that really had everything had to go through approvals and it took days. Where if you're able to just make that deal right now because you decide you're the manager, you decide it's a good deal to have, then you can just write that check and get yourself under a contract on a Saturday. You don't have to wait till Monday and Tuesday to wait for the approval to come back. So the way that Checkbook IRA has set these up is really been amazing. And it really gives everyone the freedom to do it's their money. They should be able to do what they want, invest in what they want, so long as they're not breaking the rules.
That's right. And the real big deal here is managed, self-managed. It's not just self-directed, it's actually self-managed. So like she said, you don't have to wait. I know for myself, my first self-directed IRA, I had a custodian that I bought real estate in. And anytime that there was a problem, you're supposed to use the money that you have in your self-directed IRA to pay for it, pay for repairs. However, the problem it's like if you have a plumbing issue and you have to wait for the custodian to send you the money to pay for the plumbing issue, it makes it very complicated. And it takes a little while. So you don't want to just have any self-directed IRA. You actually would need, if you want to have the most control, you want to have a self-managed IRA, and Checkbook IRA can do that for you. And since I found them, they have given me a coupon code, so I can actually help my clients be able to get some money off of the fee of creating that for you. Can you talk to our guests, or not our guests, our listeners today about how taxes are handled with the IRA, self-directed IRA?
So with them, if you are using traditional funds, just like your IRA that you've had for years, anything that grows and accumulates in that account, you don't have any tax consequence at the time of that growth. But when you take the funds out later, you will have a tax consequence, because as you do distributions, it's going to be counted as income and you will pay tax on that. If you however, if you put it into the Roth or you've converted it to Roth, that means you've already paid the tax on it and you're done with that. There are a few situations where you end up paying tax, and one of them is UBIT. UBIT is unrelated business income tax. Like, so when a tax exempt entity, which really is what your IRA becomes, it's a tax exempt entity. When that entity starts engaging in business activity, then they start getting taxed at the trust rate. And it's basically to level the playing field. There's another situation where your self-directed IRA, self-managed, could get a mortgage. But the way that the IRS has set up these accounts is that you have to pay taxes on the income derived from the debt that's been financed. And you really it's one of those situations where you got to run the numbers and see if it makes sense to do that. Because there's a lot of times, let's say, you want to buy a property for 150,000 and you only have 100,000, so maybe you borrow 50,000. But maybe it makes sense to do it. Otherwise, if you couldn't buy the property without having the extra borrowed 50,000, it makes sense to do it. Does it complicate your accounting? Sure, a little bit, but it doesn't have to. You can definitely do some things that keep it simplified. So
that's why I keep you around. That's why I keep you around. You could go complicated, simple, right? I love that.
So with the something that probably should touch on is that there are some things you can't do with your IRA, and that really is it's a real short list, but it's important that you keep in mind. there's certain investments like life insurance and collectibles, because obviously collectibles, and as you know, like art is a way that people have used to launder money. And this is one that the IRS is like, no, that's a no-go. You can't do that with these accounts. You can't do life insurance or collectibles. There's certain persons that are restricted to you for using anything with your IRA. So your ancestors, lineal descent, my spouse, myself, and my spouse, I can't do anything that would be considered self-dealing. But let's say if my husband wasn't on my IRA at all as either a trustee or a manager, I could help a mother-in-law, right? Or I could help, a grandmother or something on my husband's side. The other people that I can't do anything with, like my IRA can't do anything with my dad's IRA, and vice versa, and I can't do anything with my kids. But other than that, that's pretty simple. If one of these disqualified persons owns a significant portion in a company or entity, then that would be another entity that I would be restricted from dealing with in there. But other than that, you can pretty much do almost anything.
You can be super creative, and I like that about you. I've seen you do some really creative things with your IRAs or your self-managed IRAs.
Yeah.
This is the other thing we should talk about a little bit is the type of accounts that we can move into these self-directed accounts. I know the ones that I used was my traditional IRA and my Roth IRA. And what are some of the ones that you have been able to help people with or talk to people about?
So, there's a lot of folks I've talked to that they got out of the stock market because they were just so scared of what's been going on. So then the money's just sitting there, and they have money left over in, an old IRA or an old 401k with an old employer, their 403bs, anything with their qualified annuity plans and government eligible deferred comp plans, even Cobra, the educational funds can be moved into a self-directed account. And for some people, it makes sense to have both a self-directed traditional and a self-directed Roth, because depending on where your income level is, maybe it doesn't make sense to do that conversion right now. Maybe you want to wait until you have less income, but it's always about planning and running numbers, which is what I've helped my family do. And I've got all these spreadsheets, and we get on a call and we open up a shared spreadsheet so they can kind of see where their numbers are running. And I'm like, sometimes I'm like, I don't know if I know the answer. Let's run the numbers and figure it out. And they're like, gosh, I didn't know I could take that out. I had one person I helped that they had gone from one employer to another, and they just kind of kept moving their 401k to the new employer every time they left. Well, and they called their employer to say, hey, I want to be able to transfer out my old money. And they said no. So I got on an email thread with them, and I'm like, okay, they want to do it in service, and they still said no. Finally, we got somebody to say, oh yeah, you can take that money out. So, and it's called an in-service transfer. If you have money from an old employer that you moved into your current employer, you still can access those funds, and you can move them into a self-directed and start doing more creative investments than what's available on Wall Street.
Yes, absolutely. And how long did it take you to get yours set up, just in case somebody wants to know that?
Well, it takes about 3 weeks. I mean, that's start to finish, and even moving some funds into it. But it's one of those things that once you get it set up, it's worth the effort. And it's something that the folks that we use at Checkbook IRA have always been so great and available to answer questions. So it's one that, I'm currently helping some other friends get theirs set up as well. And it's so fun to kind of see the light bulbs go off as they start seeing what they can really do with this compared to just being programmed their whole life. So they're going, okay, well, I can buy stocks and mutual funds, and that's what I can do.
When I first found out about these self-directed IRAs back in 2000, and I think I lost my corporate America job in 2010 or 11, something like that. And I just let it sit there for a while. Turned it, it was an IRA, sat there for a little bit until I learned about this. And I was like, oh, wow, I can start buying some real estate. And the good thing at that time was that the housing market was still pretty good. And so I was able to buy during that time.
Yeah.
But Anyway, I know, is there anything else that you think you'd like to share with our audience today?
Well, I know you have a diverse group of listeners, Chris. The one thing I would part with on people is that, definitely look at the self-directed accounts. And really cool with the thing that you can do with the self-directed Roth is you can retire early. If you once you put that money in that Roth and it's been seasoned for 5 years, if you leave it in there, let's say, my son Nate, who you've talked to, he's in his young 20s. If he puts that in there and he's let that account season for 5 years and he starts to, let's say something happens, he has a job change, he can access those funds. And he will have to pay a 10% penalty because he's not 59 and a half. But gosh, I would love to be in a 10% tax bracket. So what a great, so even though that's a penalty, it's like, gosh, you know what, if I can stock as much money in there as I possibly can, then even if I'm not 59 and a half yet, if I only have to pay a 10% penalty, I'm all for it. But I know you also have some business owners. So our friend Steve Shepard has said, if the self-directed IRA is the Cadillac, the solo 401k is the Bentley. And that's probably for another call, but just wanted to depart that with that.
Yes, we definitely will need to be talking about the solo 401k. That is one that I, not too long ago, decided to take a part of. And yeah, it's good. It's great for tax to be able to lower your taxable income. But I so appreciate you coming on with us today. I wanted everybody to hear from somebody that wasn't me, a client, somebody else that has have participated in this self-directed IRAs, and you have been wonderful. You've shared a lot.
Well, thank you, Chris, and you have a great one, and I'm looking forward to talking to you again.
All right, thank you. If we didn't answer all your questions today, which I know we didn't, we want to hear from you. What you wish you knew more about. Leave us a 5-star review on our Apple podcast and ask in the reviews, or send us a Facebook message, and we can do a show just to answer your questions. Thanks for tuning in. Join our Facebook group. Hey, this is what Stephanie usually says. But thanks for tuning in. Join our Facebook group, CashFlow Hacks, and follow our Facebook page at CQ Consulting Services, our YouTube channel, Instagram page, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Subscribe, give us a like, and remember that sharing is caring. Who do you know that needs this information? Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.